so beautiful. Oh, no.
Someone's art project, maybe?
All the way out here?
That's weird.
Don't miss the film critics are calling.
Nightmare fuel.
Hello?
A truly terrifying killer.
Hey, are you okay?
A wonderfully violent backwoods slasher. The scariest movie yet in the Great Chainsaw Massacre tradition.
You're a new doll. You're gonna have to play along, play along, play along, play along, play along.
Mother.
What did you do to me?
Knows.
We gotta go.
Best. Dolly. This film is not yet rated.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Fresh Cuts. This is Mike. Joining me, as always, it's Mr. Venom. What's up, Venom?
Greetings and salutations, backwoods psychos. I don't know how many we'd actually have listening to us, and I'd be curious to find out how they're listening to us. You think they got an iPhone or something? I don't know. Anyway, how the hell are you doing, Mike? I'm doing all right.
Yeah, the Wi-Fi is probably sketchy out there. I'm doing good. Nothing really new to report here. I did a bunch of lawn work, so I still feel exhausted from it, thanks to getting old, you know. Also with us, it's Don and Ellie. What's up, Don?
Yeah, what's going on? Always happy to be here.
All right, so we had a couple releases this week. The Bride is probably the bigger one, but it turns out it's not really a horror movie, so we went with the other release in theaters, probably a much smaller release. I don't know how many cities got it, and I'm sure some of them had limited screenings at that, but luckily we were all able to see it, and that would be a movie called Dolly. And our synopsis: Macy, a young woman, is abducted by a monstrous figure intent on raising her as their own child. I don't know how many people saw a trailer for this, but you would probably recognize Sean William Scott, aka Stifler. That's what jumped out to me because it just was like so random to see him in like this kind of movie in 2026. But hey, it's cool. I mean, there's nothing bad about it. It was just like random when he popped up in the trailer. But anyways, so yeah, this is kind of like your backwoods crazy serial killer type movie. So let's see what we got it. General thoughts, go to you, Venom. What did you think of Dolly?
Overall, I describe this movie with one sentence. This is overall an enjoyable journey to an ultimately unsatisfying ending. I actually did enjoy this film for the duration of the movie, in all honesty. I thought our killer was great. I like the mask. I like the fact that it's this, towering, incredibly powerful woman, doing the things that she's doing. I like the setting of the house. I thought the house looked good, for a backwoods psycho killer's home. I thought the performances were fine. The performances of our protagonists were just okay. Like, it's not like they were so good that they really compelled me to, hope that they survive. Obviously, with such a small cast, you're going to get a movie with a low body count. But I will say that despite the low body count, we do get some quality kills here. So the filmmakers definitely went for quality over quantity. That's for sure. And I'm okay with that. We get a couple of creative kills, and even the one fairly standard kill that we get still looks really good. So I'll give the movie that. once we get a little bit of a reveal at the end of the second act, beginning of the third, it makes our antagonist almost a little bit more interesting. And I thought they were going for a more sympathetic ending. I'm glad they didn't, but it definitely felt like that's where they were leaning. Now, my issue with this movie is going to be its ending. This movie is sequel bait, to say the very least. Now, they're not so egregious that they make you sit through all the credits to give you, the sequel stinger at the end. The movie pretty much ends with the knowledge that, this story isn't over by any stretch. But and I've always kind of hated that about movies, because there have been great movies that have been part of franchises that still have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And this movie doesn't feel like it has an end. It felt like the movie is only an hour and 22 minutes long. So it literally felt like there should have been 8 more minutes to kind of wrap up this story. But the filmmakers chose not to wrap up this story, leaving the room for a potential sequel. And like I said, when they're that egregious about it, it just kind of bothers me. I would, just give me the culmination of this story. Especially in horror, you can always bring back a killer, bring back a protagonist. Just because they're dead doesn't mean they're dead. I mean, how many of us have watched comic book movies? Death is not the end in a lot of cases. So how many times has Jason Voorhees died, for Christ's sake? So there's better ways to end a movie like this and still give us the potential for a sequel. But the fact that it's so egregious it makes the ending of this film just seem incredibly unsatisfying. Like I walked out of the theater incredibly unsatisfied after enjoying myself for the first hour and 18 minutes of the hour and 22-minute runtime. It's literally just the ending of this movie that left me kind of scratching my head. And if we rated our movies, that ending would have dropped the rating for this movie greatly, because I'm a fan of a basic backwoods slasher. I don't need a lot of backstory. You got a crazy woman in the woods killing people. That's all I need, honestly. And this one, like I said, it built up a lot of good it built up a good reputation as being potentially just a straightforward backwoods slasher. You're not going to get anything too crazy special, but you're also not going to get anything unwatchable. And ultimately, I think the ending is going to make or break the movie for a lot of people. You're either going to walk away from this enjoying it and hopeful that there's going to be a sequel because of the ending, or you're going to be like me, where you walk away just incredibly unhappy with the way that they ended this. Even if it does become a franchise, I will always dislike the ending of this movie. I don't care if Dolly becomes the next Art the Clown. I will always hate the end of this movie for, how egregious the sequel bait is. But overall, a very watchable backwoods slasher. I had fun with it. I didn't regret going to the theater to see it. I just really wish they did a little bit more with the ending. So that's about it for my general thoughts. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Don, what do you think of Dolly?
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with Venom. I do agree with a lot of his thoughts on this. I do like the setup. I do like the way it plays around with the expectations. The way that she holds the girl captive, the way that everything kind of unfolds at the house once we get there. We get a decent enough backstory on everything. Not everything is like explained to the degree that it probably could have been, but it's good enough for what we have in this kind of a story. The kills are great. Love the gore. Nothing like egregious or groundbreaking, but good enough for this kind of a film overall. I do understand where he's coming from with the finale. I do think that is the one area where this one does kind of become its weakest point. I do think that it kind of just keeps going, and it has way too many false endings for what it's for. What kind of a story that this has. Obviously the final one is designed to be sequel bait, and it kind of leaves things too open ended for what what had been a really solid film up until then. Uh, Trying to think what else here, just to not be much of a spoiler, not to give too many spoilers, but also trying to think of something that maybe Venom didn't mention. Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad story. There's nothing like really egregiously bad about it for the most part. It's just, yeah, the finale is kind of a, it does kind of set everything up. The other only thing that maybe you could probably ding this on is again it has weapon dropping. Kind of surprised Venom didn't bring that up now that we think about it, but yeah, she could have escaped on this multiple times. I mean, there's like what 3 or 4 escape attempts, and every single one of them gets halted because she keeps dropping the weapon. Um, yeah, that that's another one that kind of sticks out with this one, but I mean, yeah, it's not groundbreaking. It's not gonna, reinvent the wheel. It's not gonna, do much of anything other than just being like a really solid entry in the style. But yeah, it does have those, 2 small factors against it. But yeah, other than that, it's a really fun story and has a lot going for it. So I guess back to you, Mike.
Okay, so I agree for the most part. Yeah, this is a fun little movie. To me, I still watch trailers, and this movie was pretty much what the trailer advertised it was going to be. It's what I call like kind of junk food horror. You go in with the expectations of a killer in the backwoods that kills people, and there's not much deeper to it than that. There's some cool kills, practical effects, gore. The mask on, I guess, the Dolly character, which shouldn't be a spoiler because that's the name of the movie, is pretty cool. It obviously wears its influences on its sleeves, which is fine. I don't mind that either. Uh, I think it does pretty much what it sets out to do. It's not trying to be bigger than what it sets up, which is people end up in the woods and have a run in with a weird psychotic killer. I like the setup, how we kind of get introduced to another character. I thought that was cool. And then yeah, in the final sequence, I agree. It does fall into some of those trappings or tropes of like final showdown that probably gets extended because of dumb moves by our main character. Maybe that was to fill out running time because you could feel it was kind of like losing steam at that point. Like, oh, can we like stretch it a little longer? Okay, well let's stretch out this final confrontation with weapon dropping, or like where you have the killer on the ropes and you either don't just take off and get the hell out of there, or you just don't try to like finish off the job because as far as we know, nothing technically supernatural is going on. So it's not like a Jason, well, I guess Jason starting with six situation as far as like supernatural capability. But hey, I mean, this one, it's dirty, grimy, gory. It's kind of what, like, this movie reminds me of something you would get at the video rental store when like you were trying to rent like a Friday the 13th or a Nightmare on Elm Street and they were sold out. So you have to kind of go to like these lesser known titles with obviously like lower budgets than the big Hollywood ones. And so you grab something because like maybe the cover art looks cool, take it home, and you end up kind of liking it. So that's about what I would equate this to. It's not like your top tier slasher or whatever you would call this subgenre, but for a Friday night movie at the theater, I think it was a fun enough time. It got the job done, and like I said, it advertises itself as the movie you get. So there should be like no expectations that you're there to see anything else but what we ended up getting. And if yeah, and Stifler being in this is funny just because of the fact that Stifler is just randomly there, and something that happens to that character is pretty cool and interesting. So I'll leave it at that for now. Back to you, Venom.
All right, back to Don's point about the weapon dropper. I absolutely agree. And yes, it did bother me. But what's funny is that it didn't bother me nearly as much as it bothered the girl sitting in front of me in the theater. She was absolutely hysterical. Every time this woman our main character would drop a weapon, leave a room when she had the upper hand, this girl literally became animated. She was like a cartoon character, throwing her hands up in the air, multiple times people in the theater, shushing her, telling her be quiet, because she would just, as soon as the girl would drop a weapon, she'd be like, oh, come on now. And what's funny is that this girl is way young. Like I actually look at her and I'm thinking, wow, you seem way too young to be upset at that trope. But at the same time, I don't know how long she's been watching horror. But yeah, that might be part of the reason why I didn't bring it up in my initial thoughts, because every time it happened in the movie, something that happened in the theater would make me laugh, and it just added to the entertainment value. But yes, I absolutely agree. This again, this girl dropping her weapon, leaving the killer because when she thought she had knocked her out or whatever the case may be, just it started to get really bad towards the end, just the constant weapon dropping. But at the same time, with a movie like this, it's not the most creative thing in the world. So, I'm not saying that I forgive it necessarily, but it does do enough positive that I can forgive it for that. Now, another thing that I thought the film does very positively is its aesthetic. Like the movie, they try to get that grindhouse aesthetic here. They don't 100% succeed, but they use a lot of shaky cam. They use lower quality film stock, or the video resolution, whatever you want to go with. So they actually kind of try to make it look like it's one of those 70s grindhouse flicks, very Texas Chainsaw, if you will. So I did enjoy that aspect of it, especially at the beginning. After a while, you almost don't really notice it. It's not like X, where the 70s aesthetic is thick from beginning to end. Here, it almost seems to lose it halfway through that, or it just becomes not very prominent, and you're paying more attention to characters and the storyline and everything else. I do agree with Mike that seeing Stifler in this, I just randomly, was rather interesting. But what's funny is that a little tiny piece of me always feels bad when actors get typecast, when the Mark Hamills of the world can't do anything but Luke Skywalker. And granted, Mark Hamill might not be the best example because he had a great later career, long after, once the 90s hit and he started doing like voice work, or late 80s, excuse me, it seemed like his fortunes turned around. But I mean, same thing. Anytime we see this actor, we're gonna see Stifler. So it's like filmmakers have to kind of balance, is it worth having a name actor in our movie if it's going to take the audience out of the movie? I mean, because they could have put a no-name actor in this role, maybe even saved a little bit of payroll, not having to pay a no-name actor. Granted, I can't imagine that Sean William Scott is commanding millions to make movies by any stretch, but he's still going to be more expensive than the average, no-name actor. So I am a little surprised that they even bothered. But I agree with Mike. His appearance does end up being a very guilty pleasure, if you will. I almost wish it was Justin Long that played this, just to kind of add to that myth of Justin Long in horror movies that I guess was recently broken, but that's a conversation for another podcast. So yeah, the aesthetic of it, I do want to give it credit, because especially for that first act, it felt like they were going for that grimy kind of backwoods feel, and I thought they did a pretty good job. It's not perfect by any stretch, but I still thought the aesthetic was pretty good. So, All right, gentlemen, anything else you guys want to bring up that's spoiler free before we get into our spoiler discussion?
Can't really think of much.
Nope.
All right. Well, I mean, without even really talking about the movie, I think most people are going to get the walkthrough down. A couple of city people go hiking in the woods. The guy's planning on proposing. They end up running into a crazy woman in the woods who's carrying around a headless body for some reason. And hilarity ensues from there. And it's basically just a big old cat and mouse game. Like I said, this is why we have a low body count, not a very big cast. We get a couple of people appear like on, video screens, phone screens, like FaceTime, stuff like that, but not really, much other than our main three, Dolly, and what's funny is as I'm watching the movie, I didn't actually think that Dolly was the name of the killer, because early on in the movie, they kind of imply that the killer is making this girl her quote unquote Dolly, dressed her up like a Cupid doll. And, that's kind of like a tourist trap situation, even though with tourist trap, it was more mannequins, but still, just a crazy backwoods idiot killing people and turning them into, in this case, dolls. But then when you get to the end of the movie and you watch the credits, the killer's name is actually Dolly. So we are all correct in calling the killer Dolly. So go figure. By the way, played really, really well by Max the Impaler. For those who don't know, Max the Impaler is a wrestler at AEW. I don't know if she still is, but I know she was in the early 2020s. I'm not much
NWA.
of a, Is she NWA now?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, there you go. And she is a beast of a human being. Like I saw pictures of her earlier today, because when I saw the credits and I saw Max the Impaler, knowing nothing about professional wrestling, I assumed, like everybody else, that was a guy, that Max the Impaler was actually a man. But no, it is a very broad woman who looks terrifying. So good job in casting. And this isn't a first time role for Max the Impaler either. It looks like she has a few film credits, nothing that that casual fans would know, but it looks like some hardcore fans might know some of the stuff that she's done. But anyway, so good job with the casting on the killer. Our protagonist, like I said, they don't do a great job. They don't do a terrible job. They just kind of do a job. They're okay in their roles. I wouldn't go so far as to say likable necessarily. It's definitely, fodder for the killer, which, sometimes I'm okay with. Sometimes I get a little sick of. But in this case, because we get some quality kills, I'm very okay with it. So I don't know. What do you think? I mean, what'd you think of these kills? First of all, I mean, our very first kill of the movie was what was it? Was it Dad? Well, no, technically it was the attack on Sean William Scott's character, which was pretty fucking gnarly looking.
What I liked about that too is like I assumed he was dead after the initial attack. And the fact that we get him throughout the movie, like walking around, still looking for her with his mouth, his jaw, the way it was ripped apart, it kept making me think of Beetlejuice when they go to try to scare the Maitlands and the dude or I think it's Barbara, right? That takes her mouth and like opens it wide like that. But yeah, I thought that was cool looking. And especially when they reunite later on and like the girlfriend has like a glimmer of hope, like, oh, I'm here. We're gonna get out of here, or I'm gonna save you. And like, nope.
So yeah, folks, for those who haven't seen the movie that are still with us for the spoiler conversation, basically Dolly takes a shovel and first she breaks her leg. She breaks Sean William Scott's leg with the shovel. At first I thought she like just chopped it off. That's almost what they implied, but it turns out that she just kind of broke it. But then she takes the shovel and she does that half decap thing where she sticks it in the mouth of the victim, jams it up there hard enough so that the bottom jaw dislocates from the rest of the skull. And the last time that we see the character, he's leaning up against a tree with his jaw just hanging down. It's not like hanging down by just a single strip of flesh, but it's very obvious it's been dislocated from the rest of the jaw, from the rest of the skull. It's just dangling there. He's got this wide open maw, which is just, it looks like nightmare fuel for little kids. How he survives this, I mean, the more I thought about it, the more I realized you probably could survive that injury for a good amount of time, because there's no vital organs, there's no vital arteries. I mean, the what do you call it? The shovel's basically going through the cheeks. So, through the flesh of the cheeks, and there's no major, arteries or veins or anything in there that's going to make you bleed out. And then the dislocation of the jaw. I mean, people dislocate their jaw all the time and don't die. So I guess the more I thought about it, the more, okay, there is a conceivable world where he can survive that injury. But I'm sure he regretted surviving the injury once the Dolly finished it later on. And yes, of course, as expected, Dolly is able to corner Stifler and just finishes the job, tears the jaw completely off the rest of the way, dispatching him fairly easily. Oh, man, that was a great little kill. For the first kill of the movie, I thought that was awesome. And then at the end of the second act, beginning of the third, we get the reveal. Well, all throughout the film, Macy, our protagonist, is talking to someone who's also trapped in the house, conceivably, a guy, doesn't give a name or anything, and just basically helps her. Basically is like, she has a big silver key somewhere in the house. It might be in the basement, blah, blah, blah. And of course, our protagonist, wanting to get the fuck out of the situation, takes the guy's advice and helps him. But what's funny is I'm sitting in the theater and I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. If this guy got kidnapped by Dolly, how does he know that she has a big silver key? And how does she know, or how does he know that the basement is her quote unquote special place? Like, he knew too much to just be another random prisoner. So again, that might just be decades of watching horror movies and basically being skeptical of every new character that's introduced in a horror movie. But yeah, we do eventually get the reveal that the prisoner in question is actually Dolly's father. And I guess the little bit of backstory that we get is that, this family, a mother, a father, and Dolly, lived in the woods, and mom was basically kind of the boss. What mom said went. And then mom died. They don't tell us how. They kind of imply that dad might have killed her, but maybe not. So basically mom dies, and it left Dolly unhinged without her mother to, kind of guide her. She basically just became an uncontrollable monster, ended up chaining her own father in the basement, which is where Macy finds him. Once she actually does get the silver key, she finds him in the basement, blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, fairly instantly after they take the chain, unshackle him, he turns on her, he takes her. At first, it seems like he's just going to use her to get out of the house, basically threatening to quote unquote damage Dolly's new plaything. Eventually, Dolly does come out. There is a confrontation. There's a struggle. And then because of the threats that the dad, who's, I think his name was Billy, if I remember correctly. No, or was that? Yeah, I think his name was Billy anyway. He basically, while he was taking her out of the house, with his arm around her neck and a knife up against her throat, trying to antagonize Dolly to come out, he basically implied that he's going to take her and have some fun with her later on. So, more backwoods hilarity there. So obviously, while Dolly and her father are struggling in the kitchen, Macy decides to actually help Dolly and ends up stabbing the dad in the back. And now, obviously, this is a big guy because he obviously helped in giving birth to this gigantic woman, who's killing all these people. So he obviously is a big man also. But by Macy stabbing him in the back, it just distracts him enough so that Dolly can fucking punch through his torso. This is where the movie gets a little over the top, but you know what? I'm gonna fucking allow it because I had an absolute blast with this scene. Yes, she doesn't do the stupid crap where she punches through and has her father's heart still beating heart in her hand. Like, you know, they didn't go that over the top, but when Dolly pulled her arm out of the hole, she did kind of look through the hole and tilt her head like she was fascinated with what she did. So I thought that was a pretty good kill. Oh man. But yeah, they didn't do a whole lot with Dad. Like I thought Dad was going to be a more focal point in the movie. And obviously with the runtime only being an hour and 22 minutes, you kind of have to, you know, the story has to be fairly peppy. You can't really take too much time with backstory and introducing too many characters, blah, blah, blah. But I still would have liked to have seen a little bit more with Dad. Maybe like really imply that he killed Mom just to get that extra little bit of hateability on him. But I think the mere fact that he was threatening Macy with, you know, awful, awful things made him hateable enough as it was. And at this point, it just leaves Macy and Dolly where they have a knockdown, drag out, back and forth, blah, 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 until, and this is the sequence where Macy has the upper hand on Dolly fucking multiple times, at least 3 or 4 times just in the third act. She has the upper hand. At one point, she knocks her out and she's got a shovel in her hand. What the fuck does she do? She drops the shovel and tries to get back her engagement ring that Dolly stole off of her fiance's body. I mentioned earlier, I think I mentioned earlier that Chase, played by Sean William Scott, was going to propose to Macy. That was the whole point of this trip, but the proposal got interrupted by Dolly's first appearance, and then Dolly found the ring and kept it. So I mean, I understand wanting to keep the last piece of your boyfriend / fiance that you're actually going to get to keep. But the other thing is that he has a daughter. Chase actually has a daughter. So it's like, you've got something to live for now. It doesn't make, I mean, even more so than you did before, because now you're literally all that little girl has. You know, her daddy's dead. Lord knows where mommy is. I'm not sure if they even mentioned mommy. But I mean, or if that was her in the movie, that might have been her at the beginning dropping her off. But either way, the fact that she went back to get the engagement ring when she could have, that was one of the times that she could have just escaped. But instead, she went back, drops the fucking shovel, tries to get the engagement ring off Dolly. Of course, Dolly comes to, and, you know, the fight continues, blah, blah, blah. And then that leads us to our very uneventful ending where they have a standoff right after a park ranger shows up. Dolly basically decapitates him unceremoniously. Still look pretty good. She actually picked up the head and like mimed or mimicked the guy talking to her through the windshield. I thought that was kind of funny. Dolly, despite Dolly being an absolute psychotic fuck, it seems like she knows how to have fun with her victims. She plays with her food, if you will. I'll put it that way. Eventually, there's a standoff where Macy is in the truck, Dolly is in the road, and it seems like Macy might not run her down, like might just try to escape and leave her alone, almost like maybe she was feeling sympathetic because Dolly is obviously the way that she is because of her parents. And, you know, ultimately, most of us are the way we are because of our parents. So, you know, I thought Macy was maybe giving Dolly a little bit of a pass, but no, she ends up doing the right thing, slamming on the accelerator and running her down. But then she stops and gets out of the truck. And I'm thinking, here we go again. Here's mistake number 6 for this woman in the movie. But this time she's able to walk up to Dolly, pull her engagement ring off. Dolly does not do the, you know, final second jump scare. She stays on the ground, and then Macy drives away. And very reminiscent of movies like The Descent and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, our final girl drives away laughing hysterically, maybe maniacally, you might want to say, until we get our closing credits. And then can anybody explain the post-credit scene? because it almost seemed like it's technically supposed to be the first scene of the next movie. They give it to us with no context at all.
Yeah.
Like literally the post credit scene is three guys, one of them being a police officer, knock on someone's door. The camera is in the first person view of the person who's answered the door, and these three people, they talk about it happened again. They talked about this woman with a doll mask in the woods, and this time there's a survivor, and blah 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 blah. And then the voice, the person who we can't see says something. I completely forgot what it was they said, and the movie ends. So not only do we get the sequel bait at the end of the movie, because no, we don't know that Dolly's dead, and standard horror movie rules: if you don't see the character die on screen, they ain't dead. So it's a fairly safe bet that Dolly's not dead. Who knows? Maybe Dolly will have more family members in the sequel to come and attack her. But like I said, overall, a fun journey. I enjoyed the movie. I enjoyed the majority of the movie. I just wish the ending wasn't so open ended. You can give us a solid ending. I always look at movies like The Matrix or the original Star Wars, where they started a franchise, but that first chapter had a distinct beginning, middle, and end. And, it went on to create the franchises that they became. You can do that and not leave the ending open-ended. Like I said, like this movie doesn't feel like it ended. It feels like it stopped. And I hate that, especially when I enjoyed the movie the entire way through. So yeah, overall, I would recommend the movie. I don't think it's vital theatrical watch by any stretch. The sound design isn't anything exceptional. The cinematography is nice considering they're in the woods, but like I said, because they go for that kind of grindhouse aesthetic, it's not like you're looking at beautiful 4K imagery or anything like that. So I would say wait for streaming and check it out. But I mean, if you are a slasher lover, then it might be worth going to the movies if you can even find it. Out here in LA, I only had 2 screenings a day. Both of them were after 8 p.m. So I had to wait until I actually had a day off, which was yesterday, to go and see the movie. So yeah, I got to see the movie at the last minute. And I still haven't seen The Bride, though I probably will see that later this week, as I am very interested in that one. And that's it for Dolly. So I guess I'll turn it back over to Mike so he can wrap this boy up. Or a girl, actually, in this case.
Yeah. I was interested to see if we were ever gonna get Dolly unmasked in this. The best we got was like, I think a chunk of the mask got destroyed, and then we can see towards the end. I think we got a better camera shot of like through the eye hole, but like nothing conclusive about like what's going on under there.
That's what I was wondering. Like, was she dirty? Or was she burned? Because her skin under the mask was very dark, and we saw Dolly's bare boob in one scene. So we know, should I say Max the Impaler's bare boob on screen, and it looked normal. It's not like it was burnt or dark or anything too crazy, but Dolly's face was. So I'm not sure if maybe there was something physically wrong with Dolly's face. Maybe they're saving the unmasking for a future chapter, thinking that this could turn into a franchise. I've seen worse movies become franchises, so I'm not against a sequel to this, but just for fuck's sake, give us an actual ending next time, and you can still figure out ways to continue the franchise, well into, 6, 7, 8 movies, if you will. So I don't know.
Yeah, and if you're keeping me there for a mid-credit scene, make it better. Or was it at the end? I can't remember. Was it all the way
Well,
at
there
the
was
end?
both. There was a mid-credit scene with the report, with the it was like a news
Oh
broadcast.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, and then the post-credit scene that basically made no sense whatsoever. And they even brought in Ethan Suplee, which again, you're bringing in a big name from television just to do the post-credit scene? That seems odd.
Yeah.
Oh well.
I yeah, I don't know because I could see it getting a sequel. Whether the sequel will make its way to theaters It's tough to say based on like I don't know how
Yeah.
much money it made for how many screens it was on, but I would say probably not enough to like
Nah.
guarantee. But
Less than 500,000.
yeah,
480,000 domestic. That's US and Canada. So yeah, it doesn't say how many screens it's on, but you got to figure it was very limited screens
mm-hmm.
because
Yeah,
it was actually pretty crowded when I went to see it last night. Like the theater was more than half full for, I mean, for a Sunday night. I was pretty surprised.
yeah. I went on a Friday night and my screen was at 5:55 p.m. and there was more people than I expected. There wasn't. I wouldn't say there was a lot, but
Mhm.
considering like I haven't really heard much advertising or hype. The trailer did run a couple times in front of movies I had seen over the last couple of months, but other than that, not a lot of fanfare that I knew of going into it. So
Mhm.
there just still ended up being more people than I expected, but not a lot.
Exactly. Yep. I still, like I said, I was surprised. I had almost half a theater. For I mean, for a horror movie in March, in early March on a Sunday night, I was surprised. It's that post Super Bowl doldrum where, there's not a whole lot of sports on, until the World Cup starts. So, and baseball's practically on hold because of the World Baseball Classic. So, yeah, it's a weird
Yeah.
time to be a sports fan.
All right. Well, with that, anything else you got out right now for people to listen to?
Yes, I can finally say that No More Room in Hell presents Creature Comforts episode 47 is now available as you hear this episode. On that episode, we looked at Don's latest pick, which was uh, that was Final Wars, right? No. Yeah. No, that was the Giant Behemoth. I'm sorry. I'm way behind. It was 1959's The Giant Behemoth coming from the UK. A first time watch for me, but a favorite for, the other guys on the show. So that episode is available now and go check it out. Otherwise, that's it for me. No real guest spots or anything else to mention. Hopefully, we'll have the main show, another episode of the main show sooner than later. And that's it for me.
All right, Dawn, what do you got?
Yeah, pretty much same thing. Creature comforts. My pick was the giant behemoth. So yeah, that's pretty much all I got on my end.
All right, so for me, the main show, we might have mentioned it last time, but yes, 72 is out with guests Dan and partially Lacey, I guess. Lacey was there for most of the show. And we talked about what did we talk about? Idle Hands and Cherry Falls. And I also was a guest on 22 Shots episode that they did Scream 5, 6, 7. And I was on the return episode of Cinema Beef, where what the hell do we even talk about? I can't even remember off the top of my head. I'm super tired today. I was up way too long last night, but I believe anyone that subbed to Cinema Beef's feed like before, I think it just actually, you know what? I don't even think it's out yet. So I'll just leave it at I was on it, it'll be out, and then maybe when it actually is up, I'll remind everyone. So I'm used to like these other shows where it's like I'm on it and then it's like up within like a week. So, but yeah, so I guess look for that in the future. And then this week we got two releases coming.
Mhm.
I'm assuming we're gonna do Undertone unless
Oh
like
yeah,
yeah.
A24 baby.
So definitely seen that. And there's I forgot the name of the other one, but I'll probably
Scared to
check that out.
Death.
Scared. There isn't. I think there's another one though too.
Really, a third? Because I know
Yeah.
Scared to Death opens Friday the 13th as well.
I don't know if it opens, but it's the new Shutter one, Body Cam.
Yeah.
Ah,
Some. Yeah. Um. I think that's this week, but
I mean, because they will kill you is the following week, or excuse me, Ready or Not is the following week, and then they will kill you is the week after that,
which
which
looks,
basically looks like Ready or Not anyway.
dude.
So
Every time that They Will Kill You trailer starts up, I thought it was Ready or Not 2 for like 10 seconds, and I'm like, oh yeah, there's this other one that looks exactly.
Exactly. So
Oh,
yeah.
the other one coming out this week is called Slanted, and it looks like a body horror. You know what it sounds like to me? It's like a post substance body horror, body image, body dysmorphia.
Yeah.
So I think the substance has created like that, not created, but like I guess reinvigorated like that new subgenre because we also got that new Ryan Murphy show that's like similar
Beauty,
as
right?
well. Beauty, yeah. So we might get a few of these in the next few months, but yeah, there is one opening, and I do have screenings for it, so probably definitely see it.
Uh-huh. The neon demon crawled so the substance could walk.
Cool. Well, with that said, check out all the things we mentioned, and we will be back within a week to probably most likely talk about Undertone. So, with that, let's say bye to our listeners.
Later.
Dolly? I was expecting a Dolly Parton documentary. The whole time I'm waiting for Jolene to show up. I was pissed off.
Peace.